Cause and Effect, Motley Crue by Chris Akin. Copyright 2017, Rich with Hatred Publishing Limited. All rights reserved. Cause and Effect, Motley Crue is humbly dedicated to my mom, Kathy Akin, who not only encouraged me to be a rabid music fan for as long as I can remember, but instilled my ability to hear and find good in all kinds of music. My grandfather, Lester Burge, and my father, Bill Akin, who both showed me that pushing forward when people tell you that you can't succeed is ultimately what allows you to flourish. I wish you were here to share in these accomplishments. The Core 9. Knowing I have unwavering support regardless of what I do makes me want to do even more. Thanks as always. And the great Ian Lemmy Kilmister, who created the blueprint of life that consists of doing things your way and not giving a fuck about the consequences. I live humbly by Lemmy's inspiration and find that it works for me too. Rest in peace, sir.
Chapter 1, Red Hot. Shout at the devil, we've laughed at your wars. Can't you see we're out for blood? The year was 1983, and my friend Jamie Simcox had this tape that had a bunch of colorful characters on the cassette cover. Jamie lived down the street from me, and I'd be lying if I said that he and I were great friends. Sure, as neighborhood kids, we'd play in many of the same pickup basketball, baseball, and football games around the neighborhood, but I honestly don't think he ever hung out at my house or me at his. So, to say that this one encounter was outside the norm is an understatement. Still, I remember very distinctly that Jamie had this tape. The name of the band was Motley Crue. The tape, Shout at the Devil, was everything that a parent would hate and a deviant kid like myself would love. It had pentagrams on the cover. It had crazy, crazy-looking guys pictured in the artwork. It had a warning about backwards messages right in the artwork. Yes, this was something that I needed to hear. In those days, I used to have what was, at the time, the state-of-the-art Sony Walkman. I was the cool kid on the block with my Walkman, complete with leather case and strap that went over the shoulder and made it look more like an electronic purse than a piece of stereo equipment. At the time I got it, I also had 3 cassettes: Pat Benatar's Crimes of Passion, Genesis's Abacab, and Michael Stanley Band's MSB. I had a few more tapes at this point, mostly stolen from the local Kmart or dubbed off onto Maxell tapes, because at the time they were the best that was offered. Most of the tapes that I had at the time were about the same as the 3 I just listed, rock tapes, and really almost zero that would have ever been considered metal. In fact, I'd bet that on this particular day, I only owned a single metal album, Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. But seeing this tape, I simply had to have it. What do you want for that? I questioned. What's interesting is at this point, I had never even heard of Motley Crue. I had no knowledge of their previous album and had not even heard a single note of this new cassette either. Still, for whatever reason, I felt the need to own this cassette. Through some discussion, Jamie and I came up with a deal and the tape was handed over to me. I grabbed it up, popped it into my player, and off I went walking back toward my house. With that, my love for hair metal was born. I remember distinctly that where I started playing the tape was right in the beginning of Too Young to Fall in Love. Instantly, I knew that this was a band I was going to love. The booming drums, the nasty guitars, the shrieking vocals. This was new, and it sounded kick-ass in my ears. I remember that I listened to it all the way through at least 3 times the first day I had it. By the time I'd had it a week, I knew every word to every song and was trying to convince all my friends that this was going to be the next big thing. Somehow, though, my friends that were locked in on the greatness of Huey Lewis, Foreigner, and Human League were far less willing to give this band even the slightest listen. Still, I became obsessed with this band, this release, and really anything that would fall into the hair metal genre for the next 8 years of rock and roll history. Motley Crue is an interesting band to me. Musically, they are now and were then a band who were mostly hit, but sometimes missed about as hard as a band could. Albums like Shout at the Devil, Dr. Feelgood, Theater of Pain, and Too Fast for Love were about as good as anything the genre ever had. Other albums, like Generation Swine and the popular but lousy Girls, Girls, Girls,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?